I don't believe in utopias. So I look at my body, and always there's diseases coming up. I get sick, I get a flu, I get cancer, I get this, I get that. I don't believe it ever stops. We need to take care of the body. Just because it never stops doesn't mean that you don't take care of the body. Don't try to learn how to feed it right, how to take care of the illnesses. But if you're doing that because you think there's going to be an end to it or a change, then you get frustrated. As far as I'm concerned, it goes on and on. This is life. This is nature.
I was born in Brooklyn, New York, to Jewish parents, and raised in Jewish tradition, but not religious Jewish tradition. Our family was more socialistic, and I did go to Hebrew schools to learn Hebrew and the Bible and those kinds of studies. But in early years, around 10 years old, 12 years old, I did a major study for myself of the existence or non-existence of God, and studied many different traditions and philosophies and literature, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, all kinds. And in college, in reading in English class, we were studying religions, and I first encountered Zen Buddhism, and it felt like my way, and decided to study that, and I read everything there was to read in English about Zen, and then started to practice meditation in Zen Buddhism by myself, and then in 1963 met a man who was to become a Japanese Zen teacher, who was to become my teacher, and by 1970 I ordained as a Zen priest. I've always been interested in integrating my Zen practice with social action, and as soon as I became a teacher on my own, having my own community, which was in 1980, I started to get involved in social action projects, working with homeless, working with people with AIDS. And then in 1990, I decided to look at what should be my future work, and did a retreat in the snow in Washington, D.C., with the question, an outside retreat, sitting on the steps of the Capitol, asking myself, what is my future and what should I do to further this work? And at that retreat, the idea came to start a Zen peacemaker order, which would work in countries where there were conflict and work with areas of social unrest and social need, and to work with people who are interested in doing those kinds of works. I'm interested in taking the what I consider the essence of Zen training, that is the realization and actualization of the oneness of life, the interconnectedness of life. My main focus is to bring that to all walks of life, into social action, into the business world, into education, into the military world, all aspects of life. And I'm particularly drawn to places where I feel our people are not taking care of things. I also find myself working with the aspects of society that society is not willing to work with or to even acknowledge. So in the city, homeless people are generally not even seen. They're not recognized. They're invisible. And in many aspects of life, there are situations or people that society does not see. And in fact, within ourselves, there's parts of ourselves that we don't see. And I try to work with those rejected parts of society and rejected parts of ourselves. I think it's just a natural as in Zen we train how to have enlightenment experiences, which I define as experiences of the oneness of life, of the interconnectedness of life. And the more you have of those experiences, the deeper and broader they are, the more natural it is to be taking care of the oneness of life, the interconnectedness of life. So for me, it is very natural. It's the notion of oneself keeps enlarging and enlarging as you realize the oneness of life and the interconnectedness of life, and it's very natural to take care of yourself. Others looking at it may think that you're taking care of an other, but for me, it's just a natural consequence of the awareness of what life is. I grew up in a family that was socialistic. My parents weren't. In fact, my mother died when I was very young. I was 7 years old. But my aunts and uncles were all involved in socialistic and communistic work in the United States. But I wasn't particularly involved with them. I was more interested in sports and engineering and electronics and aeroplanes. And in fact, that's how I educated myself. I went to engineering schools, both middle schools and college, and had no idea that I would go into the kind of work that I now am in. I did when I was very young, in 10 to 12, I did this intensive study on the existence or non-existence of God, but I had no ideas that I would be involved in either social action work or religious work. And when I entered Birkenau, I could feel the souls crying out, and I felt I had to do a retreat there. It is very difficult to understand how Auschwitz, in which so many cruel things happened, and things which can't be normally explained. I mean, if the basic issue is you want to get rid of the Jews, why not just kill them? It's expensive to keep the torture of Auschwitz going. Why feed in such a minimal way? Give no food, and then people will die quicker. There are many. It's not easy to understand why things happened at Auschwitz the way they did, and yet when people come for the retreat, there is a healing process that takes place, and how to explain that is not easy. There is an energy at Auschwitz that maybe it's due to all the souls that were here. Each person has to ponder that question, because they will feel the horror, the anger, the guilt. They'll feel many things, and towards the end they'll start feeling some sense of healing, and also some sense of needing to work for humanity, and that will arise. And it is not easy to understand why.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I'll have some water.
Yeah, drink some water.
In the first retreat, generally, the way it's designed is that the first day is a big overload. So people have to first work with, it's too much. The being overloaded, physically, mentally, it's an overload. And I want people to experience that and to see how they deal with that. Then feelings of sorrow, of anger, of guilt, those come up, and generally in the first retreat, that's being worked with the first few days. And then towards the end, by Friday, there'll be a sense of family and gathering. That energy will arise. This afternoon, we actually will work with the energy of victim and perpetrator. And so that will become, that's sort of the next piece, which will then come up in tomorrow morning's council. So there's slightly different themes that we work through that we have in the retreat, built into the retreat. And then there's, even without us building in the themes, due to the flow of energy and just where we're going, certain things arise. Yeah, every year for me has been different. And every year for me in Auschwitz has been different. And many years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I thought that I had been here enough. And maybe I have been here enough, but I certainly have not borne witness to the depths of what Auschwitz can teach. Because every time I come, I touch into a new place, a new question, a new feeling. So probably if I stopped leading the retreats or coming, I've organized the way the retreats, but I have many people leading them now. Even if I'm not part of the bigger retreats, I probably will keep coming here. I don't think there's any way to understand the barbaric aspect of mankind. I think we can experience it. Our body itself is very barbaric. What goes on inside our body, cells attacking cells, all kinds of things, cancers are right. It's very barbaric. And I don't think it's to be understood. I think it's we can try to deal with it and do things about it. We don't have to understand it. That's a nice pursuit, to try to understand things, but so many times I hear, like here in Poland, you can study this Jewish culture and all the things that have happened at Auschwitz, and we have guides telling us as if they understand. And I listen to them talk, and I don't get the sense they feel at all what's going on. But they can give you rational and understandings. And I say that understanding is the booby prize. It isn't worth anything. But if you can grasp what's going on, if you could feel it, that's what I try to do at these bearing witness retreats, then something will come up. You will start doing something. And it will change your life and how you do things. Part of that is to understand or to realize that life is all forms. It's muddy, it's rain, it's snow. It's not just pretty and nice, and we'll never make it just pretty and nice. It's all these things. And why do we kill cockroaches or pull out weeds? It's all these things, and this is life. And so how do we work in that? Every time I come here, what comes up is how holy this soil is, and at this time of year, how green. There's so much grass still. It's the end of the fall. It's winter starting, and we still have so much green. And every time I see greenery here, I think about the people that lived here and how there was never any greenery because they ate the grass as soon as it started to grow. So this grass comes out of this soil, which comes out of the blood and the ashes that are here. And it's beautiful. I always start fresh. I use our 3 tenets, which is not knowing. I come to the new place or old place, and I just try to be very open and to let everything sink in, to deeply listen. I try to see what are the ingredients. So I've been to Auschwitz now 13 times, 13 years. So each time I come, what are the ingredients that are here now? Different people, different weather, different everything. What are the ingredients? And then then I let the plan arise of what to do. I never go anywhere with a fixed idea of how I'm going to do it. I use the word not knowing or the unknown in a very special way. It's the essence of Zen training. Zen training is trying to get you to experience that state. That is, it's the state before we label things. Most people, when they hear the word not knowing or unknown, associate it with fear and with not knowing something in a knowledge way. For me, the unknown, the state of not knowing, has nothing to do with knowledge. I think we should know as much as possible. But the state of not knowing is the state of existence prior to any concept or labeling of what it is. So it's no attachment to any of the knowledge. That's the state of unknown to me. If one experiences that state, there's no fear and there's no problem. The fear arises because people have a concept of what the not knowing is, and they're nervous about it. It's like it's something I don't know, and so therefore I should be afraid. So we have to first move through that fear, get rid of that fear by showing some glimpses of what the state of not being attached to concepts is, and how freeing and liberating that is. Yeah, so it's a metaphor, huh? We talk, and that comes out of the way of counsel. We talk about listening from the heart and speaking from the heart. That is, trying to listen in an open way, without prejudging what's being said, without labeling, oh yeah, that person is such and that's why they're saying such and such. Just listen to the person. And then when we speak, try to speak not from a rehearsal, oh, here's a sheet of paper, I'll read this sheet. No. Try to see what's coming up within you at the moment and speak that way. That's what we mean by speaking from the heart. It's a metaphor. They say, and I believe it's true, that people who are trying to take care of those that are hurt, the peacemakers that are doing healing work, everybody loves. The peacemakers that are trying to change the system, they get killed. So there's large energies and forces to keep the system as it is. And of course, keeping the system as it is, there's going to be people that are hurt, the poor folks, the sick. And keeping the system as it is, we need peacemakers to take care of those. And everybody honors them. But if you want to change the system, then you're a danger to those in control of the system. And you have a good chance of being assassinated. There's a famous Chinese Zen master who gave as a koan, he said, we are all puppets on a puppet stage. And then he asked, who is pulling the strings? So I look at that here. The SS, the Kapos, the Ukrainians, the Gypsies, the Jews, the Catholics, the Poles, all puppets. Who's pulling the string? And for me, that's true in all our life. There's all these different. There's the Al Qaeda. There's the coalition forces. There's Bush. There's Iran. There's all puppets. Who's pulling the strings? And my answer to that koan is, and everybody thinks towards it being like a person or God or myself, or they think that way, and I think it's the story. So we all have a story in our head. Another word for story is myth. We all have a myth. Hitler had a myth. There was the super race, there was the subhuman race. We all have our story. There's the peaceful people and the non-peaceful people. There's those we have to resist. We all have our story. Everybody has a story. For me, that story, that myth, pulls the strings. So it's all the same in some way. We want a pretty garden. And we have a story about how that garden should look. And so weeds arise, and we pull them out and kill them. Because we want it to be fit our story. Our story doesn't allow for aggressors, so let's kill the aggressors. So, that for me is one of the big lessons here, because it's so clear here. The myth was so well put out in Mein Kampf. It was spelled out early on, and it was indoctrinated. And then once you believe in a story, then what you're doing is okay. It fits the story. And if you don't believe in the story, it's not okay. And then you have your own story, and you do to that. So, puppets on a puppet stage, all being pulled by the story, by the myth. So how do we get free? Let go of the stories.